because of that, we decided, or I decided to, okay, how should we?
The course today is polite. Our theme is polite
Okay, so
marketing.
for Kabzeel, we have 5 parameters of wealth, and the first is spiritual. Hello everyone, welcome. Hello from the world of base. This is Kabzeel. Hello everyone, welcome. Hello from the world of place. This is Kabzeel. I'm Folasiji. Bomi-Daniels, the CIO of the Kabzeel Group, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of our Thursday's Chat and Learn. And this evening we'll be looking at a very key concept, a topic, be fruitful and multiply. You know why this is very special to me? Because that's the first thing man ever heard from God who pronounced that to him. And at Kabzeel, we're a faith-based community made up of friends and family on a journey of discovery, entertainment, engagement, education, and economic empowerment. So be fruitful and multiply. That was the first thing God said to man. After God said, let us make man in our own image and in our own likeness. And then the first words, God, scripture says, God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply. And we're looking at the first part. And you see, actually, if you understand the way scripture was written, the words be fruitful are not two words in the original word, it's one word, be fruitful. So that is actually a commandment. If you are here, you're a man, you're a woman, you're created by God, you have been commanded to be fruitful and multiply. So those are two different layers. There are different ones. There is, after that, there is replenish the earth, subdue, have dominion. But we want to focus on the first two today, and I believe we'll be done in another couple of minutes. So what does it mean to be fruitful? If you back up in that scripture, Genesis 1, yeah, in verse 11 of that scripture, it says, and God spoke to the earth and let the earth bring forth. Now he said it should bring forth grass, it should bring forth trees, and then he down said whose seed in it is in itself. So in the bringing forth of every creation, there is already within itself seed, which is ability to produce and reproduce according to its own kind. So God then spoke to himself. That's another very important thought, that when God was going to create trees, he spoke to the earth, which is the enabling environment for the trees to survive. When God was going to create fish, he spoke to the waters. It says, let the waters bring forth, which is the enabling environment for fish to survive. When God was going to create you and I, he spoke to himself, let us make man. God is the literal enabling environment for us to survive and to thrive. If you take fish out of his enabling environment, it dies. If you take the trees out of the earth, it begins to die. If man is taken from God, it begins to die. So, and God's commandment to you is be fruitful. So say after me, I must be fruitful. Now you must understand that it is important that you be fruitful. Now it would be wicked for God to say be fruitful if there is no seed within you. So the first thing I want you to see is that God expects you to be fruitful, but there's already a seed planted on the inside of you. Now, if you are to be fruitful, the question to you is, in what area are you to be fruitful in? In what area are you supposed to give off? Now, there's a joke we say in church that, somebody that maybe laughs a lot, that this person comes from the comic side of God. You see, there are people who are naturally attuned to making people laugh. People who are naturally attuned to things like that. But you see, there's actually a seed of destiny on the inside of everyone. And in this season, regardless of wherever you are, you may find yourself in a very interesting season. You must now find the fruit that is coming from the inside of you. But for anything to be fruitful, it must be planted. So if you're going to be fruitful, first identify the seed. Second, find the field where you are to be planted in. And like I said, the enabling environment automatically is God. The enabling environment is his word. Like a seed needs three things to germinate. It needs water, it needs oxygen, and it needs the right temperature. In the same way, you need the water of the word, you need prayers, which is oxygen, praying, respirating, men ought to pray and not to faint. And then you need the right atmosphere, the right community to thrive. So, what should you do if you want to be fruitful? Particularly for those of us that are in Nigeria, that just about a year ago, within a year now, petrol prices have quadrupled. That's times 4, and we've seen a lot of what we call gas bills now. But for us, it is our call to be fruitful and to multiply. Like I remember in the wish, I sent a message to members of the community this week, and the scripture that was highlighted in me is that we shall flourish like cedars in Lebanon. Cedars in Lebanon are fruitful and they multiply in the mountainous region of Lebanon. Not many trees are able to survive or thrive there because it's a mountainous region. But the cedars of Lebanon, that is the right environment for them. So find your own field. What field are you called to be? Do not be a musician who is finding himself in the medical field, even though they both start with the letter M. But if you're a musician and in the medical field, that would be a frustrated medical doctor. Not because you do not have the ability to learn the rigors of medicine, but because that is not the seed looking to break forth from the inside of you. If you need to pass through medicine on the route to get into music, then by all means do that. But do not frustrate the grace that has been planted on the inside of you. It is the seed of God on the inside of you that will be fruitful. Now, when God says be fruitful, there is something already on the inside of you. So find that and nurture it. How do you find it? I've told you, enabling environment. Go into the word, see what the scripture says to you. For everyone, I share this with all my mentees that there is a you in scripture. Find that which God has asked you to do. I may give an example of myself. There is a you in the book of Isaiah. There is a you that God has written concerning you because you are a word from God. Now find that word in this season where men are saying there's a casting that all things are soft, this is happening, that is happening. That's not what you're supposed to do. As a seed, you find what you are to do. You find your call. And when you find that you are supposed to do, you then stay there. The next thing about being fruitful, you don't see any tree bearing fruit when it jumps from nursery to another nursery. You stay in the nursery for a while, but once you are planted, you stay until you are rooted. You say the righteous man is like a tree planted by the rivers of water. It's not like a tree that is just nursed at the rivers of water, but it's planted. To be planted means to stay rooted. That means you stay rooted during the summer season, you stay rooted during the winter, you stay rooted during the dry season, during the harmattan, during the rainy season, during the fall, during every forms of season. You stay rooted, and you ensure that in that place, as you stay rooted, you begin to develop a system of roots. It is as you grow roots, and people don't see roots because roots are like developed in secret, and that is where the foundation of your life are built, where your strong principles are built. And when everything comes to test you off of that, because you have developed solid roots, you can then begin to grow shoots and eventually bear fruit. So say after me, I will be fruitful because I will stay planted where I have been called. Now once you find that place, stay there. People may not understand it, you may not understand it, stay there. You may need to do other things that enable you while you are in that place, but ensure that you stay there. After being fruitful, the next step is to multiply. But let's still look a little bit about being fruitful. What then do you need to do? Or let me give an example. In year 2020, as we started Kabzeel, we all know what happened in 2020. A lot of people were grateful just to have survived. Of course, I'm also grateful to have not just survived and thrived. But around March, when COVID hit and we found the first strain of COVID in Nigeria and they were going to lock down, I went into prayers to seek God that, Lord, what should our response to COVID be? What should we do? And the words God gave to me were very interesting. He said, grow your own food. And based off of that word, we began to research. At the immediate, I looked at it and said, grow your own food. We're facing a coronavirus, a world epidemic, health, the world shutting down and all. But that was God's divine response, because everyone will prosper in the words that God has sent concerning you. So find what God has said concerning you and be obedient to that. So we began to, and my own background is as I'm an architect. And so somewhere I began to look at, okay, architecture, agriculture, where do they meet? And that's how I found permaculture. And today, if I begin to share the opportunities and the things that I've begun to do because I found that place. And believe me, everything I'm doing right now is keeping that as the center line. Like a tree grows, it then begins to have different branches. There are a lot of branches into finance, branches into wealth, oil, mining, different other branches, but the core remains the core. You grow your own food, you find that core. So find that which God has asked you to do. Stay there. When others are running, when others are saying there's a casting down and it is making them to run from that place, you stay there. It is in that place that you will thrive. Ensure that you are like Boaz who stayed in that place. You are like what's his name now in Genesis? You are like Isaac, who God asked to stay. Now, if God asks you to leave, please pack your bags and go. If God asks you to stay, stay. But you must hear, because that's the key to fruitfulness. What you hear will determine what you produce. What you hear will determine how much you can produce. Now, it's not just what you hear, but what you do with what you hear will determine how well you produce. Okay. Now, the next thing I then see with some people is that in being fruitful, a seed is small. Everybody likes the fruit. People tend to look down on the seeds. Like a mustard tree, the seed of a mustard tree is very small. Or let's look at maize. You look at one seed of maize and what can this do? But if you give it the right environment, that same seed will produce an abundance at the right time. And then some people now compare themselves. If you are a maize, you will fruit in 3 months. If you're an oil palm, in 3 years, you will just begin to fruit. But once the maize is harvested, that's pretty much the end. It needs to wait for another cycle. But once the oil palm begins to fruit from the 4th year down to the 7th year, it fruits like that for another 30 years. So find out what you are, stop comparing yourself, and stay rooted. Now, after being fruitful, the next step is to now multiply. What does multiply mean? Multiply means to add another layer. Multiple plies. If you understand the concept of plywood, where you look at the cross section of plywood, you see several layers of the same ply. So the same fruitfulness is what you now spread out. That which you have begun to do, you now spread out. 5 years ago, my friends and I began a journey where we're going to save together at Kabzeel, and here we are on the eve of our 5 year journey, and we're able to say, oh, thank God, we're being fruitful. But our next step now is to begin to multiply. We are broken through. We have our oil palm estate, 54 acres. We have our permaculture estates in Ekwe, 10 acres. We have different investments. We have broken through there. It is not time to sit back and say, now we're fruitful. No, it is time to say, we are fruitful. Now it's time to multiply, because a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So find that field, whether it is education, whether it is economics, whether it is governance, politics. Find the field, whether it is media, that you have been called to, and educate yourself. Give yourself one of the trainings that you can be one of the best of the best. You see, when I found permaculture, I decided to begin to train myself. I've currently paid for and done 2 permaculture trainings. Aside that, I went to the roots, found out the people there, and I looked for the current custodians in my country, and when I couldn't find the current custodians in the earth, and right now I'm one of the custodians within the country, and gradually growing our networks gradually. Once you find that field, begin to upscale yourself in a way that you become rooted in that particular thing. Then you then multiply. And I shared recently the story with members of the community, how that Samsung today is known as one of the power giants in industries like telecommunications, electronics, in the construction. But they started as a little fishing company. There's been this trend, Herbert have been saying, day one versus one day, day one versus one day. You see, a lot of people stick with one day I'll do this, one day I'll do this, but let it be your day one to start. Start in that which you have found. If you don't know what to do, go and seek. Stay with the word, stay in prayers, ask around you, right atmosphere. 3 keys that the seed needs that I shared about before. You need the right water, which is the word. You need oxygen, which is prayer. You need temperature, which is atmosphere. Ensure you find this. Once you found that, stay there. Do not allow anyone move you from there, and then you begin to multiply. As you continue to multiply, then you cannot replenish the earth. Nothing small remains small as long as it's given the right thing, and nothing of God, though it starts small, remains small. Everything global starts local. So do not be ashamed to start local. Do not despise days of little beginning. And as you continue, begin to serve people for free. As you serve for free, a time will come when they will pay you. Begin to serve people. Even if they don't pay you, scripture says that if you are faithful in that which is another's, God will then give you your home. Because if you've been unfaithful, who will commit to you yours? If you are faithful in unrighteous mammon, then God will give to you true riches. So find that which God has asked you to do. Stay faithful there, and I see you blossoming. So this is part one of being fruitful and multiply as we have time. But I want to see your comments. I want to see your thoughts on it. I want to say, have you found my field? If you found your field, then you know that you are in a blessed field because the blessing of God rests upon you. And I talked a little bit about this in my book, The Power of the Blessing. You can see, you can get it if you're a member of the community. If not, you can also get it online. So I look forward to hear your thoughts. Please like, share, subscribe, and give me thoughts and comments in the comment section below. All right, have a wonderful time and see you again sometime. Thank you. Because of that, we decided, or I decided to, okay, how should we?
The course today is collaborating output and multiplication. So like
So for Kabzeel, we have 5 parameters of wealth and the 36 spiritual growth. Hello everyone, welcome. Hello from the world of this. This is Kabzeel.